anybody wants to ask me any questions before we start this thing, feel free. Yeah.
Hello.
Hey there. Good morning. Excited to listen to me jabber on for 3 hours? Gonna be exciting. Yes, it is. Yay. So just for my own entertainment, I'm streaming this on YouTube right now too, just for fun, just to see how it looks. We'll see how it goes.
That's a good idea, actually, because I know in another class, my friend of mine was having a very hard time understanding the teacher.
Yeah.
And I said, maybe if you can try the recording and see if you can turn on the subtitles, that might help.
Oh yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if we can do that with the actual recordings, but YouTube probably.
YouTube can, yeah. I get a transcript of these things too. So the Zoom recording actually has a transcript that goes with it. Like when you play the Zoom recording,
okay.
yeah, it runs on the side. That's the reason I stopped swearing.
You're like 1, 2.
It's like, oh my God, this is no good. It's really a drag. So yeah, I was like, I better watch that.
Okay, we'll see. Do your best.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
don't mind.
Well, yeah, I know. It's just reflects poorly on the collage. Perhaps. Anyway, it's 11 o'clock. Welcome to Motion Graphics. As people kind of filter in, I'm going to I'll explain a little bit about what's going on and stuff like that. So I'm super jacked about this course. This is alternately the first time I've ever taught this course, and like the 6th time I've done it, and it's been redesigned. It was kind of designed by me, yet I never taught it. So when we did the redesign on this course, it was based on a course that I teach for the BIT program with Carlton and Algonquin. And so we thought, and it's, to me, it's a really super exciting course because it's motion graphics, and we're going to talk about motion graphics and stuff like that for sure. But the whole thing is done in the context of UX, UI. And the reason we do it is that, one, it gives you a whole lot more UX, UI type stuff. But the other part is that the reality of doing UX design, motion graphics plays a really big role in doing UX design. When you're trying to figure out how somebody's going to use something, how they're going to interact with something, whether it's a product or it's an interface or a digital product or a real life product or service, using motion graphics really helps you design how it's going to go. So what happens now is that when you're doing it's like specific as an example for UI development, you'll do all the timing and motion and stuff like that in motion graphics first in a program like After Effects beforehand to try and work out the timing so that the coders don't have to work out the timing. Like the coders don't like, you guys have done this. You try and time an animation. It's almost impossible it's very hard to do it in code without doing it some other way first. So UX UI really lends itself to motion graphics. Motion graphics lends itself to UX UI. And for you guys, it's a really good skill set to combine. So that's kind of the lay of the land. So that said, I have done this course a couple of times, and so I think it's going to be really good. I've tweaked it from where it was last semester when Hussein taught it. So it'll hopefully you'll like it. I think it is a good course. And there we go. That's kind of the kind of that sort of lay of the land. So I'm going to come back off the graphic there. Oh, I'm going to start recording. Actually, hang on a second. I'm going to record it to there we go. Okay, so let me just do the recording. Sorry, there we go. Okay, so it's recording on the cloud. I like to open with a graphic slide so that when you see it, it'll give you that. Hopefully, it gives it that graphic slide. And I'll try and put in the graphic slides relatively, like whenever there's a kind of a break, so that when you look at if you go back to the recording, you can look at it and you'll see the graphic slides pop up and you'll know where you are. That's the idea. Okay. So there's 18 people on here now. There's 20 some in the class. So as people add, it'll be all good. I'm going to go through stuff relatively quickly today because there's a lot of stuff to cover, and then but if you have questions, you can just ask me, and you can throw a comment up in chat, and I'll respond to it as quickly as I can, or just throw your hand up or whatever. It's really helpful, and I really appreciate all you guys that have your cameras on. It really makes it easier for me to teach because I get some sense whether you're confused or not. Athena, you were in that other class, and your response made me like, oh, somebody's actually you're no. The worst is when I try and make some sort of a joke and nobody, just dead. I did one yesterday in a class and it just sat there like, oh my God, it was painful. Anyway, so thanks for that. As you have your cameras on. If you have any questions for me or whatever, you can just interject whenever you want. I don't care. I know that people don't like doing it. People don't like keying their mics and saying stuff. I know it's kind of an unnatural, weird vibe in these classes, these online classes, but I certainly don't mind it at all. It's I appreciate heckling. It creates more of a dynamic to the whole thing. So I'm going to launch off into so the slide decks are up on Brightspace. So you can look at the slide decks, you can refer to them. The other thing today, at some point, if we have time, there is a quiz, and it's based on stuff that we're going to cover today in the class. Okay. So it's not a particularly easy quiz. I did it this morning and I was like, oh, I actually went in and rewrote because I got 11 out of 13. I was like, that's not good. If I'm getting 11 out of 13, you guys are screwed. So I was like, I went and changed it. So it's actually should be dead accurate. So I hope. Anyway, because I wrote the initial stuff, right? So do you guys know Ken Warner? Anybody know Ken Warner? Okay, Sherry does Ken. So and Athena, I think you know Ken. So oh no, okay, you're shaking your head. That's right. So anyway, Ken, I gave the material to Ken. Ken wrote the course, so there's a little bit of a disconnect. So I started going through it last week because I only knew I was teaching this last week. So there we go. But I'm super jacked about it because I think it's a really good course, as I've mentioned.
Ken, Rampreet and Jihan and I had him last 2 seasons or semesters ago.
So if you've had Ken, Ken and I are very similar in the way we teach, and that it's really the more try and make it a good experience for you guys and try and make it engaging for you guys, because that's what it's about. And if you're not engaged, then you're not going to learn a whole heck of a lot. So that, and hopefully, I think you got that out of Ken with him. He's pretty keen guy.
Yeah, he's pretty enthusiastic and fun.
Yes, he's enthusiastic, that's for sure. Okay, I'm gonna go back to this. We'll go back to the slide deck, and we're gonna gonna get going on this. Okay, so this is funny because this is, to me, it's the initial. This was the slide deck that I used at the end of the BIT program when I was like, okay, but it makes a lot of sense using it here. So we talk a little bit. You have some fundamental, some rudimentary kind of motion graphics experience. You've taken a motion graphics course already, right? Yes, yes, yes. So we're going to hopefully build on that and bring your skill level up. But so you already know this. The motion graphics, it's this, just like when we teach film and video, we go back to the common grammar, the grammar of film. We talk about the grammar of film. So when I talk about the grammar of film, it's things like a tight shot on something means something. A slow dolly in means something. You know, a crane up shot moving back means something. There's a grammar to film. There's a grammar to how you cut it, how you frame it, how you build the film. There's also a grammar and a language to motion graphics, and it comes from film, animation, and graphic design. So unlike film, like traditional film, motion graphics really draws on animation and it pulls from animation. But it also brings in typography, illustration, all those skills, a lot of the things that you guys have worked on. So it's this really interesting kind of blend. You can do like motion, but motion graphics is like fundamentally it's like taking some sort of graphical element and moving it. And that's really what it is. So what are you going to learn in this class, in this course? So the principles of animation are the very first thing that we do. And that's what the quiz is going to be about, is about the principles of animation. It's the very first thing you do. And it becomes hopefully it's the groundwork of everything that you do within motion graphics. I've been doing motion graphics now for 20 years, probably. And I still do use the same rules and principles of animation in almost everything that I do. So it's the same if you talk to animators. It's like basic stuff. We're gonna use After Effects as the main tool that we're gonna use motion graphics in. We're gonna do motion graphics in. That said, I don't like to focus too much on the tool. I'll tell you my philosophy about teaching After Effects. If I can teach you enough that you can do online tutorials, then I'm happy. Because what's going to happen, and this is, I'm just going to swear there. I'm not kidding you. What happens is you will, if you can remember enough stuff, like here's how keyframe works, here's the principles of the animation, here's what we're trying to achieve, and you know, like masking, and you know, like the basic fundamental kind of things, you can go in and do look up a tutorial, because what's going to happen is you're going to be like, oh, I got to do this thing and I got to do like volumetric light rays, and you're like, I can't remember how to do that. You're not going to remember because you could do it once every 6 months. So you're going to, or once a year. So you're going to go look it up, Google, you know, the tutorial, and then you can, but if you can follow the tutorial, you're golden, right? And I've said this before, essentially in media design, it's a fake it till you make it business, right? You are not going to be able to do everything. That is not possible. It takes years to do this kind of stuff. So you're going to go into the industry and you're going to be like, I could do that. It doesn't matter if it's coding in Python or it's doing volumetric light rays in After Effects. Just say you can do it and then figure it out. That's what you do. That's the nature of this business, because the tools change, the tasks change. So you're going to learn some After Effects. You're going to learn user interface design. We're going to talk about that. You've got some stuff of that for sure, a good foundation of it. We're going to spend time talking about that more in terms of how it's done, the processes and stuff like that, user interface design. And then we're going to talk about sketching and storyboarding. And I'm going to focus, when I talk about sketching and storyboarding, I'm focusing on sketching and storyboarding in a UX scenario, right? Storyboarding is not the same in UX as it is in film and video. Okay, so in film and video, you're like, okay, opening on, you know, tight shot, hand on keyboard, cut to, you know, reverse, you know, pane at keyboard, you know, talking to class, right? That's film and video storyboarding. UX storyboarding is about interaction. So what does the user do? what's the prompt? What does the system do? What does the user do? What does the system do? So, and the example that I like to use for storyboarding always is like, I don't know, those of you who drive, if you've ever used the parking meters, the parking system at Algonquin, there's a classic UX thing. You go up, person walks up to the parking meter, reads the instructions, and then you got to go like, okay, first enter license plate. Okay, next one is machine responds, put in credit card. Then user responds, enters credit card, right? That's a UX storyboard. So they're different. And so we'll do a little bit of sketching and storyboarding. Sketching is design stuff, a divergent and convergent sketching, iterative sketch, many sketches. Sketching is, so we'll talk about sketching and storyboarding. User experience, which is the overall idea of user. So not just UI, not just obviously user experience, UX. Has anybody not taken that previous UI UX course? Anybody? No? You all have taken it? Good. It's nice to have a little bit of a harmonious thing. Then we're gonna do some more After Effects. And there we go. Oh, that it ended. Okay, there we go. I didn't write this slide. I was like, oh, there it goes. It ends. Okay, I'm gonna explain what compositing is. So After Effects is it's a piece of compositing software. Okay, that's what it is. And compositing is the idea of combining stuff together and to make it into generally layers, but I'll touch on that a little bit. It's combining stuff together to make an image. So even if it's purely graphical, you got your graphic element, then another graphic element, and you layer stuff up, and that's compositing. How they relate to each other, that's compositing. It comes back to, I don't know if you've ever seen the George Méliès film. This is a film studies thing. There's a link to him there, but I'll just quickly play Trip to the Moon because it's entertaining. You'll remember it. I'll cut to the part that's specific. So let me just stop that share the, oh, that's funny. It's funny. Okay, are you seeing this no longer available thing? Are you seeing it?
I do.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I do have it somewhere. I got Trip to the Moon. Somewhere it is. This one right here. You guys know this movie? Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the clip where everybody knows it. It's this one here. It's where the missile lands on the moon's face and goes. It's pretty spectacular. Okay, so this is 1902. There we go. Boom, and then he gets out, right? And then he walks around and then we got to the shot of the moon. He's got this thing on his face. What's going on, right? So this is compositing. This is compositing. That's what they would do. So, and it goes back to this. So have you guys seen A Great Train Robbery, 1902? I think the Great Train Robbery. Did you see that in film studies? Okay, so it's another one, and it's a really easy one to understand if I play it for you. It's train robbery. I spelled it wrong. There we go. 1903. I'm going to show you this. Okay, so here's the Great Train Robbery. You see that window there with the train outside? Can you see that? The train going by?
Yes.
Notice how it looks slightly weird, but not really. You can see that. So see that train?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that train is not there. Okay. So what is there is a piece of black velvet, and it's hanging right outside the window inside the set. Okay. So this is a set, right? Because this is 1903. So the cameras were big. It's got this big camera and crank by hand, right? So they're in a studio, got a bunch of lights in it. This piece of black velvet hanging in that window. When they develop the film, has anybody done analog photography? You done analog photography? Anybody? You ever developed film? Oliver, have you developed film? No.
Um,
You ever looked at a negative?
not
You ever
not
looked at it?
successfully, but
You ever looked at a negative?
they were more like burn. Like you can see stuff, but
Yeah. So if you look, has anybody ever looked at a negative? You ever looked at a negative? Anybody else ever looked at a
I
negative?
did, yes, I did.
Okay, a few of you have looked at negatives. Okay, so Kira's nodding her head. When you look at a negative, Kira, what is black? What does black look like on a negative?
Like the darker stuff.
Yeah, well, if you shoot something, you take a picture of something, and there's black. Like my shirt is black, right? So I
Yep.
take this. What's a negative of this?
It would be
Light.
white.
What does it look like on the neg?
It would be like a
What is it?
brighter color.
What's white on a negative?
Oh, like blank
Transparent.
space.
What?
Blank space.
It's clear,
Yeah.
right? It's completely clear because the paper, the photo paper is white, right? So my shirt would be clear as a negative. So what they do is they take the two negatives. So this is the only black thing in the shot for Great Train Robbery, right? They take the two negatives and they sandwich them together. So they take a negative, they shoot a train going by. They shoot the train going by. They take the negative of the train going by and they put it behind the negative of the studio set with the black in it, right? And then they print the two of them together, and that's how you end up with the train going by the window in that set in 1903. That is compositing, right? You've got this thing, you put a layer behind it, it's compositing. And it's the same thing we do now. It's the same way that After Effects works. It's exactly the same thing. That is compositing. And it was done in Trip to the Moon. It was done in Great Train Robbery, and it was done in virtually every movie until at some point, almost every movie, until we started doing more advanced compositing. But that's how you did it. You literally sandwiched the films together. So that's compositing. Whoops, let me go back to my PowerPoint slide. So and now I want to discuss that. This leads me into the idea of VFX. Okay. So what's VFX? And it's important that you guys know the difference, that there's a difference between VFX work and motion graphics. And in this course, we're going to combine this a little bit. We're going to do, because the tools are similar. We're going to do we're going to do motion graphics for sure, but we're also going to do a little bit of VFX work. And in your actual final project, it's a lot of VFX work, in fact. So what's VFX work? VFX work it's visual effects. That's what it is. And it's when you're bringing your graphical elements, your created imagery, your CGI, whatever it happens to be, and you're integrating it with live action footage. That's VFX. So, and you're looking for something to be realistic. And it's something where it's like difficult to do or whatever, right? So, or it's just, it's easier to do it digitally, right? And of course, this used to be a huge deal, and now it's like relatively simple to do a lot of the time. I'm going to play a little video. There's a Martian VFX breakdown here that's linked on the for a movie called The Martian. But I'm going to play for you a different VFX breakdown because I really like it, and it's do I have? Hang on. Sorry, I have the wrong folder open. I do this all the time. So many folders. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna play this for you. It's from a movie called Mindhunter. Has anybody seen Mindhunter on a movie, TV series on Netflix? Tressa has. Okay, good. At least one person's seen it. Almost makes me feel better if somebody's seen it, because then we can kind of discuss it a little bit. Okay, so. There we go. And I'm going to ask you a question about this when we're done. There's a couple things that I like to pull out of this one, and I'll ask you a question sort of at the end, but so this is the undone version. So you can see the dolly tracks going in and out, right? So the dolly tracks are there. Trees are added. Dolly tracks are taken away. Then he's gonna walk across to this van here. Shocking how much a color TV was in late 70s, mid 70s. So what we're talking about specifically is down in the bottom corner here. You see, said this is about matte painting. So it's what this is what they did on it on these. This is fantastic. So this is the last little chunk. I'm going to ask you about why they're doing what they're doing in the scene, okay? Okay. So that's VFX work. So that last scene, why were they doing that? What they were doing in that last scene? Any guesses?
It was kind of glitching out, but if I understood the glitching of the video correctly, it looked like they panned the camera over the mailbox and it to make it look like a continuous shot, but it was actually two.
Oh, it was too glitchy, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty glitchy. So I don't know.
Let me. Yeah, I'm gonna play that one scene, and it'll because it's just I find it super entertaining, and I think
Playing
play that-
video over Zoom, it normally
Yeah.
comes off laggy.
yeah, I know. I'm gonna and it's funny. It has nothing to do with the. Let me try and make the window smaller and see if it. This is the shot. This is the scene here. Oh yeah, no, I'm not showing. I'm not sharing it. Oh my god. Whoops. There we go. Here, let's try this. Okay, it's moving now. Is that a little less laggy? Okay, right here, there. And here's the last shot. Okay, did you see that? Did that work? Okay, what were they doing there?
Fixing the sidewalk?
Yeah, what were they doing to the sidewalk?
No idea.
They were
What did they
adding
do?
more of a curve.
Yeah, up to the out of the curb. Why were they adding a curb? This is classic VFX work, right? So you know why they added a curb? Why was there no curb? So why was there no curb there?
Does it have anything to do with time period? I
Mhm.
don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
they didn't have accessibility.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Excellent. Exactly. Right.
Mhm.
So that's VFX work, right? So that's the kind of thing you do in VFX work is you're like the whether it's you know, of course the obvious stuff like bringing an airplane in that shot, that's, you know, easy peasy, right? But things like that, like you change signs, you change colors of trees the reason they change colors of trees is to try and for scene structure where you're not able to get this, you can shoot it when it's fall. It's a fall scene because it's got to match something else. That's VFX work, right? So the point of VFX is that the viewer, there's no sign. If there is a sign for the viewer, if the viewer sees it, then it doesn't work, right? That's a VFX fail, right? You've done a poor job. So the goal is to try and do as good a job as you can. And I'll tell you, if you want to watch any of these VFX breakdowns, there's tons of them. There's tons of them online, and if you just search for like VFX breakdown, tons of them come up because all the companies that do them will usually do a little breakdown video. Some intern will do a breakdown video of them for them, and you'll see the layers of grit applied, the layers of you know, atmosphere, that sort of stuff. So that's what VFX means. And so VFX and motion graphics are not the same thing, but they are related. Okay. Motion graphics, the term didn't even exist until After Effects came about. So this, and you may have heard of Chris Myers or Trish Myers. You may have heard about them. They were like kind of the starting. So they wrote a book about Adobe, about After Effects when After Effects first came out. And this was like, I mean, I've been using After Effects for over 20 years, right? So After Effects is old. And it was called Creating Motion Graphics. And that's really what coined the term. And the idea was that you could do this stuff. You could do these motion graphics on a desktop computer. That was like a kind of a big breakthrough. We work in compositing. We work in 3D, 2D. Sometimes it's not real 3D. So sometimes it's like 2.5D. We're constantly bouncing around in between these things. and so it can be a little bit weird, and we'll spend time this semester talking about that. So I want to touch on, and I normally don't do this to the end of the thing, but I do want to touch on the idea of what software is used for motion graphics. And I'm not, well, maybe I'll play a little bit of this. Okay. In what we work on, we're going to work on in After Effects. After Effects is a layer-based piece of software. So you literally stack this layer on that layer, and so on and so forth, right? You're layering stuff up in After Effects. The other dominant piece of software in the market is Motion, which you see a lot of. It's part of the Mac suite. So if you use Final Cut, you may have some familiarity with Motion. So it's there as well. It's also layer based. Most of the compositing in VFX work is not done in layer based work. It's done in node based things like Fusion and Nuke. And right now, I'm not even going to talk about it. If you want to, you can click on it, and there's a great video you can watch. But I just want you to understand, and this is why I normally talk about this at the end of the semester, that you can do a lot of work in After Effects, but when you're doing actual VFX work, normally what happens is the stuff that's generated out of a CG pack, CG software, like Cinema 4D or Max or Maya. You guys know those pieces of software? Not really. Okay. I never know what you guys do or not, don't you? Anyway, there's a bunch of 3D modeling and 3D animation software. So if you wanted to put like that airplane in that scene from Mindhunter, you would build that airplane in a 3D modeling piece of software. And you would give that airplane to the compositor. And then the compositor would integrate that airplane into the actual real life scene. So and the way it's done is with a node-based editor. And I can just suffice it to say that you can go look and see. If we want to talk about it later on, I can talk about it later on. Plugins. We're going to be working with After Effects with the base levels of After Effects. If you end up working in the industry, you'll end up picking some plugins that you'll use because After Effects is kind of the industry standard. These things all work with After Effects. They all do different things. You can click on those links and see if you want to go look at them and stuff like that. But they are things like, to give you an example, Trapcode, this one on the top here, Trapcode has probably the best simulator thing. So like for generating snow, rain, stuff like that, really, really solid. This piece of software down here called Twixtor makes the best speed variation plugin, way better than what's built into After Effects. So there's certain things that you would get that do that sort of thing. Video Copilot makes some crazy stuff that allows you to integrate 3D objects and actually maintain their 3D-ness within After Effects as well. So there's all these kinds of things. And then templates. Bear in mind, this goes back to what I was saying before about the idea that if you learn enough that you can do this stuff, you can just get a template and build it. It's exactly the same as web building, right? Like, don't reinvent the wheel. So there's all kinds of templates out there. So you can buy a template of After Effects template, and they're usually available. The templates are often available in Motion and in After Effects. And you buy the template for $30 and it saves you 3 days of work. So when you're working with client stuff, it's a really, really, really fantastic tool, and they're available, those things. The last little bit that I wanted to talk about here with this, and then we're going to take a break. Okay. It's almost 11:30. And if you have comments or whatever, you can throw them in the chat while we're doing this. But the last thing I wanted to talk before we go into the actual talking about the other stuff is this idea of video mapping and display. One of the things that After Effects allows you to do is do some really crazy kind of aspect ratios and things like that. One of the examples that I use is, has anybody here been to the Canadian Tire Center out in Canada? Okay, lots of nods. Okay, good. And those of you who don't have your cameras on, I have no idea what you think, but the hell with you. But the whole top row is nodding, so yeah. So at the Canadian Tire Center, there's a band of LEDs that run around the entire what we call the bowl out there, that band of LEDs, LED panels is, if you measured it out, it's 28 pixels high because it's super low res. It's 28 pixels high and it's 28,000 pixels long. So when we're building stuff for it, we make a After Effects comp that's 28 pixels high and 28,000 pixels long. And we can look at the whole thing. It looks like it looks like a line when you look at it. Just, you can't even see the 28 pixels, obviously, if you pull all the way back, but you can zoom in and you can see what it's doing. And that's how you build these things, and you do it in After Effects. That's how you build stuff for like menu boards, big giant menu boards, video projection, like big video projection type things, any kind of weird shape, because you can do shape in After Effects. Doesn't I mean, it's got to be rectangular, it's got to have some edges, but it's like whatever pixels by whatever pixels you want to do, you can do in After Effects, which is way harder to do. Try and do 28 pixels by 28,000 pixels in Premiere. So that's the kind of strength that After Effects has for things like that. It's really commonly used. And there's two links there, a company called Moment Factory and a company called ID3, and they do big shows. So a company like Moment Factory, you know, maybe not so much now, but as an example, the Super Bowl was in New York, I think 4 years ago. And Moment Factory did all this stuff that they had projectors mounted on vehicles moving through Manhattan, and they were projecting on buildings, and the projections changed depending upon what building they were beside. That's the kind of stuff that you do in After Effects. Okay, so if you want to go to, you can go. Those are links there for both the Moment Factory and ID3. ID3, I'm fairly sure does the one up on Parliament Hill. Do you know Parliament Hill, the pointy buildings downtown? Yeah. See, there's more. Great. So there's this thing that happens. There's this light and video show that happens. ID3 did that. That's all done through mapping. So you're saying, where is this building? And you do it in After Effects. And you do it because it is. So I can take an After Effects thing, and I can say an After Effects project, and I can say, I'm going to have 9 projectors, and so here, I'll show you. Stop this. Share whiteboard. I'm really digging this whole whiteboard thing. It's I started using. I didn't even know it was on Zoom until. So anyway, so you can take your projector. So let's say you've got your big tall building right here, like Parliament Hill, right? This is a really quality drawing of Parliament Hill. So there's Parliament Hill, right? So you can say, I'm going to go. Whoops. And you can take your projectors, right? So you say, how big is this projector going to be? So there's going to be one there. There's going to be one here, right? And this is how you do it, because the projectors are only going to hit so much, right? And so what you do is you program what's going to go in each projector, and you do so your comp. So this is, I'm not making them touch because it would be weird. This is a really odd graphic. Anyway, so your After Effects comp would be this big, right? And then you would output these chunks. And each one would be tagged. So it would be projector, 1A, 1B, 1C, row 1, projector, so 1B, 2B, 3A, B, C, right? So you by using a tool like After Effects, you build the whole thing, and then you output the different chunks, and then and then as long as they're synced, which they are, because they're coming out of some sort of master sync thing, they'll play together and it will work. That's how you do video mapping. Okay, so companies like that. Let me stop that share. So companies like ID3 and Moment Factory, they'll do these kind of really elaborate shows. That's also where After Effects is super powerful and useful for that type of thing. Okay, and almost always with a combination of some sort of 3D software as well. Okay, so we're gonna take a quick break now. We'll go for about 10 minutes. You can go get a cup of coffee or tea or whatever. We'll come back. We're gonna fire up this part of the we're gonna fire up this part of the blah blah, which is the next generation experience, and I'll explain to you what that is going to mean to you and how that's going to go. And that's going to go for probably like a while. It's long-winded, as am I. Okay, perfect. I'll see you guys in. So it's 11:42. Do you want to? Let's go. Come back for noon. Okay, for 12 o'clock, and we'll fire it back up at 12 o'clock. Is that good? Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good morning. Excited to listen to me. It's gonna be exciting. Yes, it is. Yay. So just for my own entertainment, I'm streaming this on YouTube right now too, just for fun. See how it looks. We'll see
That's
how
a
it
good
goes.
idea, actually, because I know in another class, my friend of mine was having a very hard time understanding the teacher.
Yeah.
And I said, maybe if you can try the recording and see if you can turn on the subtitles, that might help.
Oh yeah, good idea. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if we can do that with the actual recordings, but YouTube probably.
YouTube can, yeah. I get a transcript of these things too. So the Zoom recording actually has a transcript that goes with it. Like
Oh, okay.
it goes on the side. That's the reason I stopped swearing.
You're like, 1, 2.
It's like, oh my god, this is no good. Really the drag. Yeah, that's what I can have it all.
Okay, let's see. Do your best.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
don't mind.
Well, I know. It's just a reflects poorly on the collage. Perhaps. Anyway, it's 11 o'clock. Welcome to as people come So I'm super jacked about this course. This is ultimately the first time I've ever taught this course, and like the sixth time I've done it, and it's been redesigned. It was kind of designed by me, yet I never taught it. So when we did the redesign of this course, it was based on a course that I teach for the MIT program. So we've and it's, to me, it's a really super exciting course because it's motion graphics, and we're going to talk about motion graphics for sure. But it's, the whole thing is done in the context of UX UI. And the reason we do it is that, one, it gives you a whole lot more UX UI type stuff. But the other part is that the reality of doing UX design, motion graphics plays a really big role in doing UX. You're trying to figure out how somebody's going to use something, how they're going to interact with something, whether it's a product, an interface, or digital product, or a real life product, or service. Using motion graphics really helps you design how it's going to go. So what happens now is that when you're doing, it's like specific as an example for UI development, you'll do all the timing and motion and stuff like that in motion graphics first in a program like After Effects. Beforehand, try and work out the timing so that the coders don't have to work out the timing. If the coders don't like, you guys have done this, you try and time an animation, it's almost impossible. It's very hard to do it in code. So UX UI really lends itself to motion graphics. UI, and so that's kind of the lay of the land. So that said, I have done this course a couple times, and so I think it's going to be really good. I tweaked it from where it was last semester when Shane taught it. So it'll be
And of course, the other thing going on.
ਇਹ ਨਵਾਬ ਓਏ ਕੀ ਕਰਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਨਵਾਬ
You said that to Joe Hardy's office? Okay. So he knows it's not COVID. Yeah, because the ASL has popped up. So you're like, boom, that wasn't there. It's there now. So we're good. No, we'll see. We'll see. Oh, in the ASL thing? Are you getting some practice with the Dr. Hard here people? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm back on at noon and then I'm gonna go for a while. Okay, I'll be there in a second.
Here we go. Okay, back on. Sorry. Comment away. We're back. Oh yeah, okay. There we go. I wasn't muted. Now I'm muted. I'm extra muted. Oh my god. Anyway, okay. So we're gonna go here with our next gen experience. Again, thanks to everybody that has cameras on. It's super helpful. There we are. Boom. You guys all fired back up. So Athena mentioned to me that I hadn't muted my mic, so hopefully I didn't say anything untoward. Fingers crossed. So next generation experience. The big question you're asking yourselves is, why do you care about next generation experience? And the reason that you do is because it's going to be the final assignment in this course. So that's the big thing. Okay. So we're going to cover a little bit of it now. So you have, and then we'll go back and get it again towards the end of the semester. But essentially what you're going to do is you're going to create a next generation experience. And then, so you can think about that. We're going to go through this sort of stuff, and it, believe me, it kind of focuses in on it. But this is going to be more about the UX UI kind of thing right now. So, and we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the idea of creative thinking and this stuff, because this is going to be critical into you guys doing a decent job of this, or even a half decent job of this. So we're going to talk a little bit about design stuff, okay? And I do it because we do it because it's important that you guys understand that even, you know, I know that like there's a penalty to risk taking in school, for sure, and you don't want to bite off too much, because it can turn around and bite you in the ass, right? Like if you try and do something too elaborate, you know, then you don't have time, or you don't have the skill set, or whatever, it can be a problem in work, especially when you're doing UX stuff, UI stuff. It really is important that you try and stretch a little bit. So I do try and focus a little bit on the idea of creativity, and it comes back and to when you're designing, you're doing design work, and you're trying to create stuff. It's important that you think a little bit bigger than in fact you can do. And I think, you know, you guys, you know what I'm talking about. And that's the idea of trying to experiment a little bit, trying to try different things, and it's not something you certainly do it in motion graphics, and in motion graphics, in terms of UX, it's really important. That's the reason you do it. You do it and kind of fake it, so you can try different things, so you can see if it's going to work or not, and try and hone that out, because you're not tied necessarily to absolute reality in motion graphics or VFX work, right? So you can do things, you can try and change things, you can make things that are different, stuff like that. You can take some risks, you can take chances with stuff, and generally it's going to be reasonably okay. All right. Obviously, as far as what we do in this, like, I'm not going to be able to teach you all the skills you're ever going to need, God knows. So you're going to learn some of the fundamental things, but you're going to have to be, you know, go in, and this ties into what I said before about that whole idea of faking it till you make it in this business. The software changes, the jobs change, that what you're required to do changes, and so you're constantly having to update stuff and change stuff. I do it all the time. In what I do, I'm always like looking this up. What about this? And of course the software is changing too. So it changes what you're able to do too. Like when I first started working in After Effects, we couldn't do anything in 3D. Be happy, like try and do failing upward. Yeah, that's, yeah. The is that in reference to the fake it till you make it thing, failing upward? There's no way that they're gonna, okay, there's no way that you're gonna have every, like, people are always asking, and I tell this people that I've done digital portfolio a couple times, and I tell people this, digital portfolio students, what they try and hire is they try and hire somebody that can do exactly the job they want right now. That's what they try and hire, because HR is kind of disconnected. But when you actually get the job, they're like, they don't really expect you to do it. Like, that's the truth. If you can do everything right away, and you're too expensive for them, almost always. So bear that in mind. Like, it's not, They don't actually legit expect you. HR expects it, but the people you actually work for don't. So anyway, take pride in what you do. Try and do as good a job as you can. And this is, especially once we get into the kind of the VFXy stuff, you're the only one that could be a really good critic of your own work. Like, because you're involved in it, you're engaged in it. So try and do a really good job of what you're doing. It's really, you're only going to do something, you know, I want you to do something that you're going to be happy with. And I've looked at lots of portfolio pieces coming out of this program, and I'm like, you could have done better. And you guys know what I'm talking about, right? So you certain on things that you're, especially for portfolio pieces, do the best you possibly can. You've heard iterate many, many times. I firmly, and I've said this to many students, and because this has happened to me, After Effects will crash. You'll lose everything. You have to do it again. It's 100% better the second time. Always. 100% of the time. The job you do is better the second time you do it. Have you guys ever had a system crash? You've lost everything? You
Yeah.
did it again?
Yeah.
Was it better? Is it better the second time? Yes, it always is. And yet what we do and I do it too, I'm just as guilty, is that we settle on this one, even if it didn't crash, right? Like we go, oh, it's fine. And so even though we intellectually know, and we've had experience with it, and we know that iteration will make it better. And every code class you've ever had, they will tell you this again and again and again. Code classes, for sure. This is like, iteration is the key to making it work. The first time you write a routine, it is not good. And it'll run, but it may not be, it's not elegant. It's not, and as you get better, you are able to do it more quickly, but iteration is really, really, really important. And in UX, UI design, somebody will force you into the iteration. Even if you don't do it yourself, they'll go, oh, what about changing that? And you'll make changes and it may not work. And then you'll try it again and then it may not work, and so on and so forth. So the goal, the part of that iteration is making the mistakes. And then the second time you do it, you make fewer mistakes, or you make different mistakes. And that's one of the things is that making mistakes is good in developing UI, UX stuff. It's really important because you need to make those mistakes so that you can make different mistakes the next time. And me, it's funny, you know, when I go through this slide deck and I say this stuff and I'm like, you know, I believe this, absolutely. Nobody is going to go in and go, zero people will be like, I'm going to go make some mistakes. It just happens. Just understand that iteration is a real core element to doing good work. So, and when I say good work, I don't mean good work in the school, like in coursework. Like coursework, believe me, you do it once, you'll pass. If you want to do good work, like I'm not saying like D work, I'm talking about really good work, you need to do it again and again. So, and I think a lot of you have seen this illustration, success. It's this kind of, you know, doing a good job in the end. It's this circuitous route, right? So making mistakes. So we make mistakes all the time. It's how we learn. The key being that you recognize the mistakes. One of the things that I do for those of you who I have in the video course that I teach, I played this horrific video at the start of the class. It was just full of mistakes, because part of what I have to do is have to say, you have to understand what a mistake is. Like, is this right or is this wrong? And most of you guys, like, you know, especially in this course, I'll be like, oh, you need to change this, you need to change that. And a lot of time you won't even see what's wrong. So you got to learn what is mistakes, where it's wrong, where you can make it better. So you need to be, the first step to this is certainly in motion graphics, is being aware of motion graphics and watching it, looking for, like, watch VFX work, watch motion graphics work, take a look and see what it is, and try and increase your familiarity with it so you can see what it is. So to learn from mistakes, you have to do 3 fundamental things. You got to be in a situation where you can make interesting mistakes, where you're stretching a little bit. Be willing to acknowledge that that's a mistake, whether it's something like, so in that first week of motion of how many of you guys are in the video course? So the full top row, yeah, okay. Everybody's got the cameras on is in it. So a significant number. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. So a significant number of you are. When I played a bunch of videos at the start of that course, and they all had problems in them. People produced those videos. People did those things. So if the color balance was off, they knew it. Ideally, right? Every one of those things where there was something wrong, they knew that there was something wrong with them. But somehow they didn't want to fix them. They didn't care about fixing them. They didn't know how to fix them. It's any one of those things, right? And you see this all the time. And the more that you guys spend time looking at people's work, your own work, other people's work, the more you'll start to recognize where the errors are and whether, and then of course, in a business environment, in a workplace environment, you have to evaluate, do I have the time and the, / money to fix this? Like, is the client going to pay me to fix this? But a lot of the time it's just like the client's never going to notice, so you don't care. So this field is, you fundamentally know more than your client or your boss does about this stuff. You are only responsible to yourself in doing these things. And especially in UX UI design, it's up to you to call bullshit on yourself. Nobody else is going to do it. If you for those of you who are in that course, you watch those videos and you saw those videos, and of course that one, the US Oklahoma, that was just unbelievably bad. It was horrible, like so many mistakes. But even the other ones, the smaller ones where it's like translation of space, or it was like the color balance or something like that, your client is not going to know there's a problem there. It's your job to do this. And especially once you get into this sort of stuff, you are the one that calls on it. So you got to have the interest in, you got to push yourself to try and make mistakes, but you got to be able to have the self-confidence to recognize those mistakes and embrace them a little bit and go back and make some changes, right? So is this going to happen all the time? No, but I mean, it's a goal to aspire to, and especially when you're in in motion graphics and in like UI design, it's the world's your oyster. You can make it almost anything, right? So you really are in control of it. So it's up to you to allow people to challenge you on stuff, and whether it's your boss or your coworkers or whatever. You want, if you can, make interesting mistakes, and that relates to stretching a little bit, and make complicated mistakes that are not so easy to pick out. The better you get, the more interesting, more complicated your mistakes will be. But go back and look at stuff. Like, it very often ends up being me, the one going, why did you make that decision? What happened there? So when you're looking at mistakes, here's the structure of looking at mistakes. Okay, this is how it kind of rolls out. So you look at how did you think, how did you think the events were going to go? What was going to happen? You have to look and say, were there rather than one big mistake? Was it multiple smaller mistakes? Like, if you think about that, video that had Yasser Naqvi that had the color balance problem, that's a classic VFX mistake, right? Should it have looked better? Yes, absolutely. Were there multiple smaller mistakes? If you look at that one, the problem with that one, and I'll show for the people that weren't here for that, I'll show you I'll just do a still of it for anybody that's not in that class. Oh, sorry. Because it's a class. This is how we analyze mistakes. So let me just find it here. Okay.
Hello, I'm Yasser Naqvi.
So I'm just going to share this. So this is, oops. So this is the video here. I'm just going to show a still of it. Where's it? got stuff all over it, because it will. Anyway, the problem here was that the color balance between this foreground and the background was wrong. That's what the fundamental problem here is. So clearly he's indoors under 3200K light. His white balance for 32, and his white balance is correct. He's, if I play it,
member of provincial parliament for Ottawa Centre.
you can see
Recovery
quite
Day
clearly his white balance is fine. His shirt's white, so on and so forth. The white balance in the back is fine, but the tint is wrong and it looks weird. And it looks weird because of focus. So you say, okay, if I go back to this, so that's the problem. That's what it looks like. If I go back to that, whoops. I go back to this and I talk about problems. You say, okay, were there multiple smaller mistakes? Absolutely, because it's a combination of the color that you shot him with, the color of the background, plus it's also things like, why is the background in focus? Why is it in better focus than he is, right? Multiple smaller problems. Did you make any erroneous assumptions? Yeah, that because you white balanced one properly and white balanced the other one properly, that it would be fine. That's not right. Okay. You're seeing this, I just because it came up with a share thing, so it should be working. I just realized that I might not be recording. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I missed the recording. I'm recording now again. Oh, Jesus Christ. Sorry, everybody. For those of you who watch it later, you have to read this part. So anyway, were you trying to solve the right problems? You know, when you're looking at the problems, well, clearly in something like that, they were focused more on him trying to read the teleprompter, right? Or other things. And that's kind of a thing. Very often you have too few people, you're trying to balance too much stuff, you know? Could you have recognized these assumptions earlier, before it was done? Could you have fixed it later? A classic thing about that, recognize bad assumptions earlier. If once those two images are composited, once you have, you know, the individual over top of that background, and it's now one image. If I change the color on one, I change the color on both. So can I make it better? Yeah. Could I have made it perfect before I did the compositing? Absolutely. If I had taken my green screen shot of him, color on it first, so done the key, pulled the key, got rid of the green, fixed the color on him, put him over top of that background, looked at it in After Effects, said, oh, you know, I'm going to blur this background a little bit. I'm going to change the color on that. All of a sudden, you know, I could have fixed all my assumptions before I finished the problem, before I had output it with a problem. Was there information that would have been useful? You know, who knows? I mean, there's all kinds of things that you look at it and say, should I have learned more stuff about this? In this example, they may not have known. Who knows? What would you do differently next time? That's part of analyzing the mistake. What you now know, looking at it, okay, I could do something different. What can you do to avoid getting into situations like this? You know, how do you learn more stuff? So maybe you didn't recognize it. You know, who knows? Maybe somebody had to point it out, right? What was the situation you wanted to be in? Never lose focus on what you're trying to do that caused that mistake. In this case, they were saying, we want him to look like he's standing outside in front of Queen's Park. Well, keep going back to that. What was that situation you want? So how did you want it to look? You wanted it to look realistic. It doesn't look realistic. Was it unavoidable given all the circumstances? This is where you have to be really brutally honest with yourself about whether or not the blame can be shuffled off onto somebody else. Okay. So this is kind of the, you know, anyway, it's up to you. Have to be honest with yourself. And in the last one, it has enough time passed to know if it was a mistake. So because a lot of time you don't see it's a mistake right off the bat. So let's talk a little bit about design. I'm going to play a little video here for you, and then you'll see that it ties right in. So the link is up on it's on this slide deck, but I've got the video separately because I think there's an ad that plays before it. Heaven forbid we should give any revenue to Google Ads. Oh, I see. Sorry. Go 2015. You do have to love Ira Glass, though. For those of you who don't know who Ira Glass is, he hosts a show called This American Life on NPR. That's a lovely little piece, both of motion graphics, and it's really nice. It's really true. The thing that I want to add to that piece, though, is that you've got to keep doing stuff. You got to do stuff. You've got to try to do stuff. That's the only way you get better. But you also want to watch stuff, look at stuff, try and analyze stuff. Why is stuff that you like? What stuff do you like that is good? Why do you think it's good? Right? That's really important. You can figure out how to do these things, but you've got to figure out what you think is good. And the idea, this comes up a lot because in this is it's a design program, right? Like this is called interactive media design. Like it's a design program. So you technically are designers, right? So it's always shocking to me how few of you guys are willing to design stuff. You have to look at stuff and say, how do I want this to be? Nobody else is going to create it, right? Like you got to kind of seize the bull by the horns and say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm a designer. I'm going to design this. And there are, some constraints and stuff like that. There's some limitations, both technical and but you are bringing to the table what you think is good design, what you think about design, and that's what you're going to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about design, but what design is. And so what is design? All design is about problem solving. That's what design is about. That's what we do. So whether it's like where we put the fire in the cave, when we're living in a cave, like do we put it at the back and get the smoke, or do we put it at the front? That's design, right? We're saying like, how do we design this? What do we do? It's problem solving, right? So it goes right up to, how you design how the parking meters work at Algonquin. That's design. It's not about personal preference. It's not about unsupported opinion. It's about opinion for sure. The supported opinion. It's about problem solving. Okay. So this is another comment. It's not decoration, right? So that's what design is. So these are just a series of quotes. Buckminster Fuller was the guy that his thing was the geodesic dome, tensegrity design and stuff like that. So his idea, he very much was about balance. You guys probably have no idea what tensegrity is, but it's this idea that you can by compression and so you can create things that are freestanding and support themselves by using like connections and tension. Anyway, that's what tensegrity is. So Buckminster Fuller was all about that. That's what the geodesic dome is. So design is problem solving. So if you admit the design is problem solving, if you embrace that. So what's the hardest part of design? It's actually identifying the problem. What's the problem, right? Okay. So this is a quote from Einstein. If you know what the actual question really is, and the truth of the matter is, if you look back on design work that you guys have done, you'll realize that you probably weren't particularly happy with what you did in the end. It probably because you didn't know really what the question really was. That always is the thing, right? So if you can really focus on what the question is, what the real question is, then you can solve the problem. You can often solve the problem relatively quickly. So here's the proper questions in looking for problem solving. And we'll hit on these throughout the course of the semester, these things. These are the UX UI design things. This is the component of this that I find really fascinating and really engaging because it stretches you guys. It makes me think more about stuff. So problems. So if you're talking about this, does your solution solve a problem? Does it actually solve the problem? Is that problem worth solving? Is it like legitimately a problem that's worth solving? Sometimes the problem is just going to go away on its own. So will the problem soon be irrelevant? So as far as Donald Trump is concerned, both climate change and COVID are going to solve themselves. So we don't need to worry about it, right? So some problems will be irrelevant, right? Like, There's lots of things that no longer exist, like landline phones on walls. You know, the problem's been solved. Like, we don't need a longer cord. It's done, right? Some things, why hasn't the problem been solved? Right? Like, so there's if you can identify that, very often you get a big head up. Are there better solutions? Is there a solution, but better solutions? Who are the potential users? Why will they use it? Will they actually use it? And we'll show you examples of this kind of stuff. Would you use it? Will you use this solution? Is this the kind of thing that you would do? So there's a lot of questions you ask yourself, but fundamentally, all these questions are ways that you kind of think around a problem, where you try and think around a problem. And any problem that you've had, you've tried to solve, whether it's been something else in your life or it's been a design-related problem, that you have asked these questions. You may not have done it in any specific order or whatever, but this is just a virtue of you thinking around a problem. As you think about it, you say, this is what, how do we solve this thing? So what's next, Jen? So I'm going to play this video for you. This video is super important. It's going to come back at the when I give you the your final assignment. I will play this video again, and we're going to look at it again. But I'm going to play it now because it's a really good little kind of teaser to this sort of thing. Okay. The link is online. The video is online. It's on YouTube, but I am going to play it here. Hang on.
Welcome to Johannesburg International Airport. Please approach the road to create your pickup zone.
wash over you a little bit, I know, and painting. But what we're looking at are the fundamental ideas of these are all interface UX design things that have been created. This was done by Microsoft in 2011. So it was like the idea being, what are we going to be able to do? How are we going to be able to manipulate data, objects? What do we want to be able to do? So do we want keyboards that pop out of the desk or that are projected on the desk? Do we want to be able to interact with things on the screen in this manner? Do we want a screen that's that big? Do we want, so each one of these is a different kind of scenario. Give up or repeat in a second now. So it's a really good example of the idea of what we talk when we talk about next gen. So next gen. So what you're going to do in the end with this course, this semester, is you're going to build something like that. I'm going to show you an example of what a student did in the BIT program, just to give you, because if you watch that, a lot of people are like, oh my God, this is gonna be a nightmare. So I'm gonna play you a video that was actually done by a student. It was their final submission for, I don't know, last year, year before, something like that, just so you get an idea of it. This isn't like a fantastic one. It just happens to be one that I happen to find. See that? So that makes sense. So that was done by a couple of students. So the idea being that in this course, you're going to do basically the same thing. You're going to do that. I mean, don't do that one, but well, I'll do that one, whatever. But you'll have some sort of idea that's and it's the idea of a next gen thing is it's something that with the technology, the fundamental technology exists now, but the thing doesn't exist in that form, right? So it's feasible, it's viable, but doesn't exist. That's the idea of. So you're going to use your skills to build that kind of thing. Okay. Hopefully. Okay, we're going to go back to my slide deck here. Okay. So it's going to use next generation technology solves a real world problem. It's a huge problem, right? But it could be a problem. The focus is on the users. When you're talking about, what I'm not looking for is I'm not looking for something from a, like, look, we're going to build this thing and it's going to do this and this and people are going to love it. I want it's the user focused. This is all user focused. Okay. So you're going to focus on users. It's contextual. It has to exist in the world. Okay. Just like, so the other example, a classic example, when I first started teaching this one, this course, students be like, you know, like the refrigerator with, you can see inside, I'm like, that exists, right? So you can go over to Home Depot and you can buy one, right? You can, there's fridge that has a camera in the door. You can see inside without opening the door. What a miracle. There you go. So, but if you're going to show it, it's contextual. You got to have a fridge. You got to have you got to have a user, you know, why do you have a camera inside a fridge, right? The goal is to remove complexity, or hoping to remove complexity. We don't want a lot of complexity. Okay. So whatever you do, and this is more of a design theory than anything else, but it'd be nice if you remove complexity. I'm not going to create joy, also a design theory, and hopefully improve quality of life. So this is what the idea of a next generation experience is. Each one of those things that you saw in that Microsoft video was the goal of those things. They were solving a problem that was in some use. It was a user-focused solution. It was contextual. It was presented in a contextual manner. You knew what it was. The design was supposed to remove complexity, make things simpler, make things easier, create joy, and overall make life better. Okay. So sometimes when we think about these things, they might have no market. They can be before their time. They're very often too expensive, very often are too complicated, and they might not be feasible. But in the end, with a lot of these things, they could change the world. Like that's the idea of next generation. That's why we think of these things. That's why we do these things, right? So some not, right? Larry Page, CEO of Google, who's now basically just, you know, buys companies right now. His idea, he's got this thing, you know, this kind of business school idea that the toothbrush test, you use it once or twice a day, does it make your life better? That's Larry Page's gauge for, you know, and it's an interesting kind of evaluation, whether or not it's the final thing or not, you know, I mean, but that's an idea. So how do you design a next gen experience? How do you go about designing this? Okay. And the key element to it is learning about interaction design. And let me play this video. Where are we at now? 12:40. If you have to leave, you know, and please come back. But I'm gonna play this video here. It's a Vimeo video. Oops, sorry.
You know, when we talk about interaction design, often a lot of people like go into their pocket and pull out a phone or some sort of device or any device they have on them. But I think without humans, there's
I think we specialize with devices that have a screen because they're nearly ubiquitous now. The most common one actually is the mobile phone. We went from 0 in the late 80s to over 5 billion earlier this year. So like that's the biggest shift that ever happened.
Interaction design really implies that what we design as our man-made objects is only complete when there are people who are using it.
We are tool makers. If you use a stick to reach high, you're using a full to augment your reach. And likewise, every piece of consumer electronics that we've made, every piece of software that we've made, every service that we use, right? These are all augmentations of our abilities as humans. And when the augmentation really works, then that extension of yourself feels natural and beautiful and does what you want and doesn't get in the way.
Unfortunately, a number of technological products that we sort of use, they require our constant attention, and they have these sort of annoying beeps, and they sort of ask for our attention all the time. So something that can do its own thing, disappearing in the background is great.
I do feel that as of now, we are in the phase where we are a little bit confused of what's really important in life. I'm right here with you, and I start to look at the screen. My phone is silent, but there are millions of things that I can do while I'm with you. But am I then really with you?
It's really important to look at what the consequences are of putting these products into the world. When we think about things like the phone, it's just a piece of plastic and metal. The way it's changed our behavior, it can be enabling and also disrupting. For these things to change our lives for the better or enable us to do things we couldn't do before, they have to be done in a way that feels natural and feels like a conversation.
The use of voice and the use of natural gestures. I think Kinect was really, quite wonderful in this respect. You get rid of the wand in the same way that the iPhone got rid of the physical buttons. You're removing the extraneous, you're removing the artificial.
Everything that you touch on a screen feels glossy. It's all the same. It's touching glass. And we often try to imbue texture into that and make it feel like something else. When we start to use haptics, they give physical vibrotactile feedback. We can start to feel the difference in different kinds of touches and get to give different kinds of feedback. And then we can complete that visual metaphor with tactile feedback as well.
I think everybody's a little too fascinated with making interfaces that look like they can be touched. I find it kind of ironic that we're trying to make digital things look a little too real. See how long that lasts.
Analog can be wonderful. What's not wonderful is fake analog.
It's a little tragic how everyone is trying to translate print onto digital format. What we will see at some point is for someone to take the medium and do something that's appropriate and magical and enhances the experience.
And what interaction design really does is make those experiences natural and make them much more about the content or the experience or what we're trying to do, and less about using a device, using a screen, using an application.
Let's make it about the content, not about the Chrome, as they call it. Chrome is devoid of meaning, aside from just a signal of what metaphor is being used. And every time you see it after that, it's just noise. Whereas the content is always real. Pictures, movies, stories, these things will never go out of style. So bridging that somehow, right, making use of the knowledge, the latent knowledge and the metaphor without imitating it, I think is the sweet spot.
We're brought sort of discrete projects that are sold and closed in a box, and we deliver them, and then they get built and put out into the world. And the reality is most things are really living systems, living documents. They go on and they almost immediately change. How you actually design and enact a living system within UX is something that's quite challenging. For example, you actually need to think more about patterns of desired outcomes and behaviors you want to achieve rather than just, simply moving a user through one flow in an experience.
You give up a lot of the control, the luxury you had back in the day, where it was one user, one task, one computer. It's all gone now. It's much more like you are setting a stage, really, for other people to perform, but you can never tell them what to do. And you can perhaps make your interventions by changing the playing field a bit or throwing in some new props, but you have to perform surgery on the live patient, so to speak, while you have millions and millions of users registered.
We can't have this attitude anymore that a map is going to come out once a year, or that we have to wait for South Sudan to be recognized formally by the UN before it shows up on the map. It's like there's this idea that the map is this living thing that's being made of everything that we've got. The idea that it's different in the morning than it was in the evening is a really good way to stay connected to the idea that the world is changing.
I think that's the beauty and the biggest challenge of interaction design, that you cannot necessarily foresee the consequences when you adopt what you have designed to see something completely different than what you have created. It's like throwing a stone in the water and you don't know what it will cause.
Interaction design 5 or 6 years ago meant solving and thinking through kind of choreography of information and feedback and interfaces around a product. So, but the big step was going from thinking about it as being contained in each of those things to now thinking about it as something that exists across them.
It's understanding that ecosystem where the human is at the center and understanding that network of things and how they all work together rather than your device or your thing being at the center.
The technology that I work on and the stuff that I do is about to permeate a whole different field that is not tech per se. That'll be cool. And if it can have a really good impact there, if it can change the way your house is being done.
I think the next big thing, I mean, we're talking 5 or 7 years out here, would be what is now called the Internet of Things, which is essentially about connecting all kinds of things and stuff that currently is not connected digitally, and working a lot more with sensors and things to basically get more of the physical world connected with the digital world.
That's what the future lies in store for us, is there'll be software and everything. In books, not just an iPad, but in books. Your packaging for your food that talks to your refrigerator, lets your refrigerator know what you're eating.
Clothing, when we start embedding these things into our products, then we're not talking about pressing buttons on screens, but we're talking about our everyday objects and fabrics responding to the way we behave.
A lot of the things that we interact with, like a simple and stupid light switch, becomes a piece of intelligent technology that communicates with other objects. And in a way, when I press this button, I might not get the same result depending on the situation or the day of the week or the time. So in a way, the environment becomes a little bit more intelligent, not with like a centralized intelligence, but like smaller units talking to each other.
The transitions between being in your car to outside of your car to back in your car being a lot more seamless, things being done in the background that allows you to just focus your attention on driving and not necessarily on like changing the radio or like answering your call.
The more we equipped all the products and objects in our lives with these sensors, and the more that they're able to sort of talk back to us and have conversations, we want to make sure that those feel natural. What I'm looking to do, or the kind of information I need when I'm at home, is different from when I'm on the go, is different from when I'm at work or say in a public space. So what we're going to see is our products and services starting to learn where we go and anticipate our needs and how we want to digest information and what we're looking to do in each of those places.
Using embedded devices, embedded technologies more broadly in our environment, not just in the home, but moving into cities, streets, buildings, etc., as a way to broadcast and communicate data to the network and create sort of a mesh-like network that lays over a city or one's experience, not just between their mobile device and their tablet and their home, but really, in real time across everything.
So this whole idea of collecting a lot more data and then presenting it not as a listing or a spreadsheet, but much more subtly, something that is meaningful to you from the corner of your eye. So imagine that you could see on the street, you could see literally the footsteps of your friends where they went an hour ago, or perhaps slightly more abstracted, so you get this blue kind of buzz over this block, and you get the sense that that's probably a good place to go, because some of my friends seem to be there.
Natural processing of visual information, it's getting better and better every year. And of course, expressions on faces and emotional content. I mean, there's the big category recognition one, the one that is able to look at a photo and annotate and say, this is a paper cup, and this is a chair, and this is a light, and this is a camera. That'll be very, very enabling.
and the thing that I think is very interesting that's about to happen, is that people are entering status messages, or they're talking to each other, or they're noting things, or they're pointing to articles or occurrences on the web. Or if, in the case of like the earthquake in Japan, they're asking for help and they're being found. So when you type in a message, or when you type in a status, when you post a photo, in essence, it's becoming digital. You could take all those pieces and you can design all kinds of amazing things around it, because it's not just about photos being digital or music being digital. People are now actually entering their lives, what's going on around them, into a digital format. And so we'll be able to start to do things with that in the future that I think are going to be very exciting.
Interaction design is at a pretty interesting inflection point right now. A lot of the models and a lot of the ideas and a lot of the principles are in place. And a lot of the hard work today is not just commercializing them so that we can rent a movie or that we can hold up our phone and find out what music is playing in a bar. We're figuring out how to drive them to more and more mundane, meaningful parts of our lives. Things like energy. It's a fascinating field that interaction design, I think, is starting to really penetrate. You can't really rearrange the grid that easily. You can't building apartments and substations around, but you can build a shared layer on top of it through behavior and through the right contextual information that can really shift the way we use those resources.
It's also going into the medical industry. Wearable devices track your heart rates and activity you do. All that kind of stuff I think is really, really exciting and amazing.
Moving healthcare from a place of being this one-time visit with a doctor where you simply go in only when you feel sick or you sort of have an ailment, to this perpetual ongoing thing and this ongoing conversation in a very lightweight way.
You might be able to help frontline health workers, people who don't have a great deal of training. Why couldn't you take a picture of it, take a sample of it, and have the rest of the complexity of that all hidden, but that immediate piece of information when you need it? But the network is sampling the world and knowing what's cropping up where and able to match and find patterns and anticipate outbreaks of diseases. We're not just trying to sort of take those disruptive technologies I was talking about and push them out to the periphery. We're trying to now collect out of the periphery a much richer set of what's going on in the world so that we can learn as a society and optimize and evolve the right systems and services.
All over the world, things are changing at a speed that is both terrifying and exhilarating. I think one of the exciting things about the design industry and the creative process is that they can help. And I think what we need is for designers who can be embedded in the topics that are really, really important right now, and for there to be a better synergy between design and business design and social change design and entrepreneurship. They can't solve them on their own, but they can certainly help us to come up with more creative solutions.
That's the next big, exciting, fun thing, I think, and have a huge positive impact on people's lives.
One of the things that I think emerges as a byproduct of all of this intensive connectivity is there's a superorganism building up in which humans are no longer at the top of the food chain in some way.
This whole idea that we would all actually be connected, like it's actually happening. And I think maybe it's more fair to say that it already has happened. And we're kind of like still acting in some ways like everybody's not connected.
We live in a world where access to Facebook can determine the fate of a government. We're in a world where that human layer is so critical. And so I think you're starting to see this kind of new layer where there's this powerful kind of secondary effect, an emergent power that is purely delivered by good interactions, good interfaces, good ways of connecting people.
There's something bigger, which is the colony of humans connected in this way. It is a thing, and it has behaviors, and it has responses and reactions. And what's different is that now those responses, those reactions, those actions, and those collective thoughts, they happen fast, and they happen in very visible ways.
You can see it, like now. You can find out about things like earthquakes on Twitter faster than you can the earthquake itself. I see Occupy Wall Street, and I see people kind of waking up to this idea that they're powerful and that they can sort of connect with one another.
It's not very different from what happened during the Cambrian explosion, when cells began to aggregate together using chemical signals and things, and then became organisms. Their behavior can become more and more collective as those signals become more and more explicit.
Out of very individual actions, people are starting to form local connections, and then out of these local connections, you're starting to see a much bigger system appear.
We'll look back one day on things like flash mobs, and for that matter, the revolutions in Egypt and Indonesia and so on, as early displays of collective behavior mediated by these new, lighter weight, more ubiquitous, much, much faster and richer mechanisms for connectivity. We're part of something bigger. And I think many of us are not aware of the extent to which we're a part of something bigger and not entirely just our own selves anymore.
Okay, now we'll take a break for I guess 10 minutes, and then we'll stretch your legs. We'll come back, we'll pick this thing up, and I'll cover a little bit of that, and then we'll go. So it's 12:58 now, so we'll come back at 10 minutes after 1. Is that good? Not like it's a democracy. Thanks, bye. Okay, I'm back on. Of course, I can't see anything. There we go. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're in the final stretch here. So thanks for putting up with this and being somewhat engaged. Or even really engaged. Let me turn my camera back on. There we go, I'm back. Okay, so you can see up there, we're going to talk about interaction design. We're near the end of this little thing. So there's only 5 slides left in this, and then but before I go into, actually, I'm just going to stop it for a second. We're going to go through and I wanted to touch on a little bit about what was said in that little piece about connecting, just to touch on some things. One of the, I want to make sure that, first off, I want to make sure that you understand what haptics are. I don't know if you've come across, you've probably come across them. It just means literally when there's some physical motion or some physical response that happens on the device. So an example of that is if the device vibrates when you interact with it, that's haptics. So when we refer to that, and trying to build a next generation device, like, if you do make an incorrect input, sometimes the actual device will make a little shake, no, yes, or a vertical shake or horizontal shake. You can make the devices respond. A lot of, Gameplay's been using it for a long time with vibration in handsets. The other thing that was mentioned in that thing of connecting was the idea of Chrome. And it was specifically when they were talking about the old-timey kind of UI design, when you would have UI designs that would mimic an actual device. And we'll cover it a little bit later on, but it'd be like literally it's the same as having how you got a garbage can, you got a recycle bin on your desktop, and you could like technically drag things over to the recycle bin and dump them in. That's the idea. So when we go too far down that road, and I don't know if you remember way back, there were interfaces that like camera interfaces that looked like a camera, and you would have, there was back when the Apple first started doing this stuff, doing the Windows style interface, that you'd have to walk over to the library, and then there would be books and you'd put files. And anyways, so the over ornamentation of things with things is the idea of Chrome. Things that you have to go through the first time, and then every other time you go through it, it's just visual noise. What is Chrome? And it comes from the car design world, right, where you would put chrome on things, like literally you would put chrome on things, and generally speaking, it just adds to the overall noise. It doesn't make anything look any better. And an interesting example of it for me, for certain, is that Chrome, the actual, like in the automotive world, Chrome is actually problematic, because if you chrome things, they don't get rid of heat very well. So Chrome can actually be an actual legit problem in design, especially in automotive design. So that was a couple of things. The idea of overlaying levels of information, levels of data on top of the real world. It sounds like an obscure kind of concept, but if you guys have used, anybody use the electric scooters, the e-scooters? Nobody's using them? You guys all live out in the country or what? I'm the only guy downtown.
I'm downtown. They're everywhere. I have
They're everywhere.
They're all around the corner. I have them all parked out in front of my house. I'm never going to use them though.
Why not? Why not?
I have a car.
So do I. I've got a car.
Don't go outside. I'm too uncoordinated. I would get on it and I'd fall off immediately. I saw some people using them like manual scooters, and I was like, they're electric.
Oh, but you know what? The battery dies. I've seen people. So let me. I don't have my phone with me. Do you have the app? Does anybody have the app?
My son rented one and it had a dead battery.
Yeah. So on the app though, so I'd have to turn using my phone as my camera, so I can't turn it off. But if you go to Bird, if you go to they all do it. So if I go to Bird, the Bird app, I can see if there's one in my neighborhood, right? It shows me a map, shows me where I am. It knows where I am, right? Because the phone knows where I am, right? GPS is on. It shows me. So each of the scooters has a GPS sensor on it. It says, okay, it's here. But it also is giving me, if I'm beside the scooter or near the scooter, it'll tell me how much the battery charge is on that one. So it'll say, oh, and it probably varies, probably leans towards the optimistic, right? So it's probably saying, 5K, 10K or whatever. The highest one I've ever seen is 19K. And I think a fully charged one will go like 20K or something like that, right? But it will give you the charge. That's layering data on top of your world. That's the idea of it, right? So where you try and use it to be, so you're saying, where are you? What information do I have? What information can I bring to the party? How do I make this work for the user? So that's a really good example. If you ever use the app, it's a really, really good example. Bird specifically is the one that I was talking about, but it's really, really remarkable use of the technology for good. The other one that I wanted to mention, I don't know if anybody has it, is that the current COVID alert app, which the government has kind of endorsed people to use, if you have that or not. It's super clever. It was they did it with I guess some folks from Shopify, some people from BlackBerry got involved with it, and they did a really, really great job. I have it running on my phone. All it does is if you get diagnosed with COVID, you enter a code into your phone, and all it does completely anonymously, if my phone gets close to somebody whose phone has a code entered, I'll get an alert and I should go get tested. Super simple, but it's layering data over my world, right? It takes my world, it says, what can I use the sensors and stuff in my phone, and layer that, and take the data and layer that over my existing world. So that's the idea, and you see it all the time, again and again and again. And that's what we're talking about. That's what they're talking about in the connectivity thing. Okay, so I wanted to talk about that. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that what you're seeing in these examples are super, super high end. Whenever I show you something like this, it's like home shows, right? Everybody ever watch a home design show, right? Watch a home design show. They never show you some shithole, right? They always show you these really nice houses, right? Because nobody wants to watch like where we live. Like, you should see my place, there you're seeing it, right? Like, no, my house is not going to be used in a home show. Like, so bear in mind that what we're showing, I show you examples. These are really, really high-end examples. This is really, really good stuff. So don't feel like intimidated by watching this stuff and go, oh, I'm gonna have to do this. No, what we're going to do is we ease it in and make it we're talking about, we want you to understand the ideas, but a lot of this will be the first time you've done this kind of thing. So, I'm not expecting, miracles, although anyway, so don't sweat it. That's all I'm getting at there. Okay, let's go back to the slide deck. So interaction design, you're saying, okay, what is this tool going to do, right? What is this thing going to do? So there's your Timex telling time. This is, so I'm familiar with the idea. So a phone, I love watches because they're great, right? So, and I look at this thing and I look at this slide and I go, what is this actually accurate? Because I don't really think this is accurate, right? I think this is true, but do you know, I don't know if you guys know Richard Mille watches? Okay, so Fabien Alaphilippe, who has won a stage in the Tour this year, I think maybe 2 stages in the Tour this year, the Tour de France, was wearing a Richard Mille watch in one of the stages. He actually wears it all the time. Okay, and this watch it's $100 and something thousand, right? So the watch is not about telling the time; it's about flex, right? That's what it's for. Does it serve that goal? Athena, does it serve the goal, flex? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Like that's what it's for. You don't buy a $100,000 watch to tell the time. You look at your phone to tell the time, right? Like that's what you do, right? You buy a $100,000 watch because you want to have a $100,000 watch and you want people to know that you can afford a $100,000 watch. That's what it's about. So when I look at this example, this is true. This is like a legitimate comparison for sure. Telling time. Is it hard to read? Is that watch hard to read? Absolutely. Like, just if you want, because I find it funny. So there's also I can't remember the name of the football player, but a guy in the NFL was wearing one of those watches too, and in some scene, people are like, "Oh my God, he's wearing this watch." So, but a guy racing in the Tour de France is wearing a mechanical watch. Go look at a picture of it. That he is not using this for any reason. He cannot look at it on his bike. It's not possible to read. It's serving another purpose. Does it serve that purpose? Absolutely it did. Because I know about it, right? And now you know about it. So it serves a purpose. But what purpose does it serve? Something else. But interaction design, if you want telling time, you want it easy to read, you want to be clear, then this obviously the Timex Linear serves its purpose. Also far, far cheaper. This is a comment, and I think you've all run into these, right? You see, so like a door shouldn't have to have a sign on it that says push or pull, right? It should be obvious to you from the design of that door whether you push that door or you pull that door, right? That's why we have handle designs, right? So like a push handle looks like one thing, So, but of course, in the design. In the manufacturing process, often we fall like the manufacturers impose their own things. That's why it's not always consistent. But a door shouldn't have to have a sign on it, right? That is what you push on, right? Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but we have a lot of automatic doors now. We've had automatic doors have increased dramatically in the last 10 years. My favorite automatic door, though, because they're not always a fail-safe device. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been into the LCBO. This is an example I use. The LCBO near the college. It's over in College Square. Has anybody ever been into that? LCBO? Okay.
Yeah.
When you walk in, the first time you did it, Oliver, did you ever almost hit the other door walking in? The doors are offset. So the auto door opens and you walk straight, but there's another door there. And you just stand there and watch it for a while, and people do it again and again and again. Now I know. Oh yeah, this is the one I got to make this little veer in. But there's all kinds of these design things, and when you start looking around, you see them endlessly, right? These kind of design sort of issues. This is as I said, I talked about the Algonquin one. If you've used that Algonquin parking meter thing, the first time you use it, it's a nightmare, and I'm pretty good at reading English and French. I can read, right, pretty well. And I remember the first time I did it, I was like, what the hell do they want me to do? And these are designs that are designed by the manufacturers. Like if you look at the parking meters in Algonquin, do you know why they're designed like that? Do you know what drives the design on that? Are you guys familiar with them? You go enter, do you know why you enter your license plate number in a parking meter?
Oh, well, I know for like when I'm in the parking lot, it's because the cameras, there's like cars, like the security people they drive by with their little cameras, and the camera scans your actual license plate. So they don't actually look at the ticket that you have, it's just the cameras.
Exactly. So what's easier for the manufacturer to do? Have you enter the license plate number or have some other way to harvest the license plate number? Have you do it. Right? You're working for them. When you and we'll talk about this in design. We'll talk about the levels of work that are done in design later on in the course. We'll talk about, but literally when you are entering your license plate number, you're doing their job for them because they have not designed a system that's smart enough to see your plate go in and recognize that you've paid for it. It's a design fail that you have to do that. Okay, so and you have to look at the system designs from that viewpoint, from that analysis point, and start saying, why is that design like that? Because that's the only way we get better with things, right? That's how we get things better. And then classic, like Apple works really, really hard, and no engineer at Apple likes creating a remote with 3 buttons. It drives them crazy because what engineers want to do is the one on the left. But Apple has said, no, we're going to have 3. And they've driven this design idea so that now you're seeing this kind of design work happening with other companies, So this is it's driven by people willing to push that sort of envelope a little bit, right? Okay. This is the Nest learning thermostat versus the Honeywell sort of standard. What is it? It's a Honeywell or not. I have that one in my house, the one with the green one, right? And the reason I don't have the Nest is because I don't have air conditioning. I don't have central air conditioning. So in a system that uses central air conditioning, the Nest is better because it can do cooling and heating and it mitigates it. Whereas I just turn the heat on because that's all I have. But these are examples of interaction design, good or bad interaction design. So the idea is, as a designer, if you want to approach things as a designer, you have to get in the habit of asking about everything. Why is it like this? And can it be better? That's the core element of design work. So that's the end of the slide deck. And so what I want to do now is just cover a little bit about I was just reading a note there. I'm going to talk a little bit about the rest of the course. And if you guys have any questions at all, by the way, feel free to ask, please, while we're doing this. So I'm going to open up the course and we'll take a look at the overall kind of flow, what you're going to have to do and stuff like that. Okay. And I might play one more. I'll play one more video. I'm going to play one more video right now for you, just to, it's an example of what we're talking about, but yet again, another example, just to give you a bit more kind of, okay. Because this, just to give you the kind of thing that so you have some sort of, maybe even a better idea. And then I'm going to open up the project. This is so this is a Kickstarter video.
This is X-Drill. It's the drill reimagined. Yeah, we know that term is more worn down than a father of 5 at a family vacation. But trust us, there's no better way to describe our drill. If one was to make, or imagine, if you will, a drill today, what would it consist of? Sure, it would have to be a terrific drill, but what else? You'd probably want a way to help you know exactly where to drill without the help of a measuring tape and a pencil. It should also have a system that stops the drill when you've reached the right depth. It should let you know if you're leveled, and, as everything today, it should have a touchscreen. X-Drill's got all that, and more. It's made for pros, and also amazing for beginners. Basically, it's got everything to make drilling so much simpler. As avid DIYers ourselves, we feel that hardware tools shouldn't be changed. Their soul is in their stability and history. But what if we could improve without changing the basics? X-Drill is first and foremost a terrific drill. Our motor is brushless, the battery is 21 volts with a 3-hour work rate per charge. The drill works both forward and reverse, and its high-speed low torque reaches 2000 RPM, while low-speed high torque goes up to 600. In case you're not a drill buff, all that technical jargon means our drill can go through the hardest surfaces and do so precisely. We also made sure the grip is ergonomic and comfortable to use, and that the drill will come in regular and very manly red with flames. Now we're kidding about that one, but our design is slick enough to appreciate. Then comes the reimagined part. X-Drill is the first ever smart drill.
So I'm not going to spend a whole lot more time on it. You get the gist of it, right? That's a legit real. It is real, by the way. It's a real Kickstarter video. Because when I first watched it, I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" But no, it's an actual legit Kickstarter, and they raised a load of money, right? That's an example of taking existing technology, saying, how do we use maybe some sensor stuff? How do we use some technology stuff that currently exists, all exists, building it together into something that could be a next generation experience. That's an example. So you would take your drill, you would take a drill, you'd put some green tape on parts of it, you'd make some screens, some interfaces, build a UI, like figure out what you want it to be, and then you basically make that sort of thing in After Effects. It's not super difficult to do. It just takes some time, some thought, and to put it together, and we'll give you the skills to do that. So that's an example of the actual, like a real tool, the real thing that would be that kind of thing. Okay. So hopefully that's relatively clear to you though, what we're looking for in the end. So let's talk a little bit about the what the course is and where you're going to have to do things and stuff like that. And then I'll let you go. We don't need to, we've already dragged this on like super long, right? Okay. So I'm going to share this, this screen. And you will have all looked at this. So you're going to do the, oh shit. Okay. Sorry. I'm just to help you do the quiz. I'm going to cover that briefly. That's what I should do right now. Okay. Before you go. Yeah. Oh, thanks for sending me a link here. I'll go check that out. So I'm gonna, rather than doing this, you're going to have to go through, I will go through it super quick. What I want you to do, look at the activities, the assignments, and the quizzes and stuff. So here's the assignments. There's a bunch of quizzes. So this is going to be based on information that we've done. You've either done as part of the hybrid, you will have watched some stuff, or you will have done it, or will have done it in class. Then there's some skills, practical skills assessment. These are really just, they're 3 relatively basic After Effects projects. You're going to have to do something, and then you're going to post it to YouTube and give me a note to it. But these are all like, so you're going to have to do like a UX. You're going to have to, we'll give you the bits. You have to build a little interface. You're going to have to do a little 3D work. You're going to have to do a little lighting work, stuff like that. This is all, we'll teach you all that stuff. Then there's 2 major assignments, which are, there's an interactive menu that you're going to have to build, restaurant menu. You're going to have to build all the bits, make it respond to things as it goes, go from this, have this respond and all that stuff. And then this last one, which is the comprehensive user interface mockup, that is essentially what I just showed you 2 examples of. Okay, that drill would have been one, that Stargaze thing that I showed you. Those are examples of comprehensive. And I'm going to change this from UI to actually, it's UX. It's more about UX. So you're going to design it. You're going to come up with the idea, and then you're going to make the thing work. Okay. So that's the overall kind of lay of the land on the course. I'm now going to go through, we got half an hour left. So I'm going to try and find this, because I thought it was in here, but it was not in this one. So I'm going to go through the stuff for your quiz. Okay, here we go. So this is super important. We're going to cover this fairly quickly. You can go back and do it again. There is a link to an article in Bright. There's a link to an article, but I will actually do this right now for you, and you can. So this is the actual screen. Okay. So the 12 principles of animation. Okay. So back in the 50s, the animation was essentially revolutionized by Disney. George Méliès, like the thing crashing onto the moon, that was the sense of what animation was. So Harry Harryhausen with these, with his, things that he moved, stop motion things. There was all kinds of stuff like that. Disney really codified animation, and because Disney had to create a whole bunch of stuff, so they started off with Disney making Steamboat Willie and stuff like that, but very rapidly as Disney kind of grew, it became obvious that they would have to train animators to learn how Disney worked, so that they could actually create consistent amounts of stuff that had this look and this feel that Disney wanted. There were these guys, the master animators at Disney. There were 9 of them. They were the guys that had been involved with Disney from the very start, like doing things like Steamboat Willie. And so they sat down and they codified it. These 2 guys, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson, came up with this thing called the 12 Basic Principles of Animation. And these 12 basic principles of animation have really stuck with us. They have really stayed as far as the what has defined what animation is. Okay, so and I'm gonna play this bit by this is a designer and animator. He did these pieces, and he uses a cube to illustrate. It's called The Illusion of Life. The book is called The Illusion of Life. I'm gonna play this video for you, and it's in the link on Brightspace if you want to watch it again. It's fantastic. Oh, I just didn't do that. I played him. Sorry. Oops. Okay. Here we go. This is The Illusion. It's quite short. Oh, no, that won't work well, will it? That'll chug. I want it.
The following has been paraphrased from The Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. Squash and stretch. This action gives the illusion of weight and volume to a character as it moves. Anticipation. Prepares the audience for a major action the character is about to perform. Each major action is preceded with specific moves that anticipate for the audience what is about to happen. Staging. It's the presentation of an idea so that it is clear. Straight ahead and pose to pose. Pose to pose is charted with key drawings done at intervals throughout the scene. Straight ahead animation starts at the first drawing and works drawing to the end of a scene. Follow through and overlapping. When the main body of the character stops, all other parts continue to catch up to the main mass. Nothing stops all at once. Slow in and slow out. As the action starts, we have more drawings near the starting pose, one or two in the middle, and more drawings near the next pose. Fewer drawings make the action faster, and more drawings make the action slower. Arcs. All actions, with few exceptions, follow an arc or slightly circular path. Arcs give animation a more natural action and better flow. Secondary action. It's an additional action in the scene used as a supplement of the main one in order to reinforce it and add more dimension. Timing. More drawings between poses slow and smooth the action. Fewer drawings make the action faster and crisper. Timing maintains the appearance of an object abiding by the laws of physics. Exaggeration. Remain true to reality, just presenting it in a wild or more extreme form. Solid drawings. It means taking into account forms in three-dimensional space, giving them volume and weight. Appeal. It's a quality of charm, able to please the viewer's eyes. It's the charisma of the action.
So this is, that was super quick. It's really, really important. If you watch something else again, this is the thing to watch again. He does a fantastic job of codifying these little things and trying to explain them. I'm going to go through and I'm going to give you some examples of these things. So squash and stretch, I think everybody knows squash and stretch. You see it throughout things. You see it throughout animation all the time. You've probably done it. I can play these examples. I'll play it. Just going to take some time to flick back and forth. But there we go. And like anything, these things are within other elements, right? So you'll see squash and stretch. You'll see all the elements of animation, and what you want to do is you want to start being able to pick them out, right? So you can kind of sense of what it is, but you can see squash and stretch in this.
Originality. It's something that many consider to be an illusion. Yet everything in the world remains to be done, or done better. The perfect
There's
image
another one.
has not been taken. The sharpest suit has yet to be tailored. Years pass while the most advanced and exact sciences are fundamentally revised. Cities continue to build while hundreds of chairs are designed. Originality comes from making connections, seeing patterns where others see chaos, taking old ideas and elevating
There's
them
more of it
to
there.
new perspectives.
Not just in the lava.
It's a remix, a fresh pair of eyes. It's putting a spin on a dish and introducing a new wealth of flavor. It's self-expression by adding yourself to the equation. Strive for originality, but don't fear inspiration. To fight that is to ignore things that speak directly to your soul. Advance through film, music, and books. Take from random conversation, dreams, technology, oceans and mountains, lights and shadows. Celebrate and honor your
There's more
imagination,
squash and stretch there.
because it's not where you take things from, it's where you take them to.
Throughout that one, there was all the other. There was slow in, slow out. There was arcs, paths. Obviously, there was. So you got to try to. I'm trying to pull them out. We'll talk about them, but there's definitely squash and stretch. Which the idea being that you're trying to give things some natural, like it feels like a natural motion. So there's something that squashes and stretches and moves, right, when it's responding to something. Back to sharing a screen again. Staging is a little bit of a hard one to explain, but it really is. It's creating focus and clarity of an idea. You're literally presenting this part of an idea. And those of you that are in my video course, I talked about it a little bit when I was talking about Wes Anderson and center framing. There's a staging aspect to this thing. I'm going to play a video for a little clip. It's an animated video here, and it's of course now. There we go. You'll see. Oh, sorry. There we go. Stand by. There we go. So look where your eye is going here and how it's
Beans are high in
focusing your
protein,
eye.
antioxidants, and fiber, as well as prebiotics called oligosaccharides. Your teeth pulverize the beans so they're easier to digest. The mush goes down your esophagus into your stomach. Pepsin, an enzyme, snips proteins into easy-to-absorb blocks. In your small intestine, other enzymes mobilize to break down any remaining carbs, fat, and protein into even smaller molecules that are then transported to your blood. But you can't process the oligosaccharides because your body doesn't have the enzyme needed to break them apart. Plus, they're too big to be absorbed. The oligosaccharides are pushed to your colon. Billions of good bacteria feast on the oligosaccharides and, through fermentation, convert them into short-chain fatty acids that can be used as fuel. But fermentation produces a byproduct, gas. Some of it is absorbed in your colon or passes into your bloodstream, but for most of it, there's only one way out: the back door.
So you knew where to look throughout that whole thing. It was presented to you. It was like here, then here, then here. Like it literally. So for me, as for a representation of staging, fantastic. You knew exactly what to look at, right? You knew exactly where to go. Okay. Straight ahead action and post to post. So straight ahead, and I'm going to play a clip for you and I'll talk about it while it's going. Because I'm trying to wrap this up here. Only got 15 minutes left. So much stuff. You're not expected to know all this stuff. think all of it. We'll go back and cover some of it. This is the opening of a movie called Juno. And this is straight ahead.
If I was a flower growing wild and free, all I'd want is you to be my sweet honeybee. And if I was a tree growing tall and green, all I'd want is you to shade me and be my leaves. If I was a flower growing wild and free, all I'd want is you to be my sweet honeybee. And if I was a tree growing tall and green, all I'd want is you to shade me.
Try to find the audio levels.
All I want is you, will you be my bride? Take my hand and stand by my side. All I want is you, will you stay with me? Hold me in your arms and sway me like the sea.
So watch this thing. What is done here is that they shot this stuff, and then they shot it in real life, and then took the film and they photocopied, the artist that did it photocopied the frames, and then and did it again and again and again, and then drew on the photocopies and then turned that back. This is literally frame by frame, which is why when you see Ellen Page walking here.
Hand and stand by my side. All I want is you. Will you stay with me? Hold me in your arms and sway me like
a frame. Gives you all kinds of control over every frame. You're drawing every frame, but it can be a little bit more jerky. 3D animation is almost universally pose to pose. Have any of you guys done any 3D animation? Anybody know? Okay, some of you, maybe a little bit. Okay, so in 3D animation, you picture this. You draw a character. You have a character, and they're here, and they're next, and then you have them here, and then all you do is you tell the computer to go from here to here, right? Like you don't draw all those, right? The computer draws all those. You say here and here, and this is pose to pose, and this is frame by frame. Okay, and you can see it in that Juno opening. It's a very specific animation style. All animation used to be frame by frame, right? That was truly part of the art, right? Was doing it. Okay, and you can watch this later on if you want. Slow in, slow out. Oh, sorry, whoops. Slow in, slow out. Everything this whole semester has to be slow in, slow out. Everything. So if it isn't slow in, slow out, you need to have made that choice. So for instance, in week 2, we'll do a ball bounce. Okay, ball's gonna come in off the frame, it's gonna come down, hit the floor, bounce, go up, arc, come back down, bounce, come back up, arc, blah, 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 right? We're gonna do that next week. So what's gonna happen is you're gonna come in at the bounce point. You don't want to slow in, slow out. A bounce is gang, right? But coming in, it's going to accelerate as it drops down. So slow in, slow out. If it's not applied to every keyframe that you do, you've at least thought about it. You've said, do I ease this in or ease this out? Do I do it? I'm not going to play the example. You all know it because you've all done it. You did it when you did your last class, your last motion graphics class. You know slow in, slow out, okay? But if you don't do it on everything, you have to do it. You have to at least entertain the idea. Okay. An arc. You know what an arc is. So the rule is things move in an arc. It's an arc or a natural path. So you need to think about what path that's going to take. So let's say you got your ball coming in. Is that ball going to move in a straight line? You throw a ball. Does it move in a straight line? No, never. It's always in some sort of an arc or some sort of a path, a curving path. So things rarely move in a straight line. If you're moving something in a straight line, you better have a really good reason to move something in a straight line, because in the world, things don't move in a straight line. Okay. I mean, unless you're building a Rube Goldberg simulation, in which case you're following a track, or you got a train, or you got something like that, where you've got something moving in an actual literal straight line. But other than that, no. I'm not going to play you the example of that because you know what that is. Secondary action. There was the example that in that video that we played at the very start, where we went through all of them, was really, really good. It was a cube thing with a second cube on top. I'm going to show you another example of that. That's like gives you a more like another example, maybe more practical, or I don't know, it's more practical, but anyway. Stop share. Screen share. And you'll see this quite clearly when it happens. That's secondary action. It's real secondary action. Yeah, there it is. You see watch the bug up top here, right here. See that bug? That bug landing on top? Right? That's secondary action. It's purely put in there to make it charming, to make it appealing. There's no reason for it. There's no legitimate reason for that bug to be there other than it being charming and giving the letter some sort of feel of more kind of relatability. Okay, so secondary action is something that complements the existing action, but it's not a literal, it's not, it doesn't, you don't really need it. It just adds something, so we see it all the time. You saw it, and you'll see it in a lot of these things. There'll be multiple ones. So the flames, the little bug on top of the sea, those are examples of secondary action. Timing is when you bring things in and when you bring things out, and how long things stay in one spot. Okay, and you have to do this. Okay, this is all you. When you're a graphic artist or digital artist, you do all this work, right? This is your thing, right? Oh man, what's this? It's got the wrong link. Okay, sorry. Yeah. I'm gonna play you a video. I have to find it. So here we go. Oh, this might do it. I'll have to sorry. Here we go. It's YouTube. It's just a commercial right now, so. It's the opening of Anatomy of a Murder. Let's get past this. He didn't do this part. So hopefully you recognize this style. This was Saul Bass, and he did this kind of stuff. This draws on very much the film work of guys like Hans Richter in the early 20s, the filmmakers. But this is about bringing things on, shapes, where they go, how long they're there for. They're there for this period of time. Like, what's that doing? Why does he do it? This is trying to tell this little story just through timing. How much is on the screen? How long is it there? Where does it come from? Right? This is nothing but timing. like blew people's minds when you first saw that. That was like super crazy shit. So that literally is nothing but timing. I want to talk, I've got 2 more to cover, 2 or 3, and then we're done. Okay. But I just really think this is going to help you doing the quiz. You're going to have to go through this stuff yourself anyway, but this should really help. The explaining of it. Solid drawing. So solid drawing, the idea of solid drawing is trying to give things a sense of mass. There we go. Giving things a sense of mass and of volume within that space. So you're adding a 3D kind of feel to it, but you're not necessarily drawing it as 3D. Okay. So it's like so I'm going to show you the Madman title sequence, and you're going to see this guy dropping from, if you've never seen it before, this is guy falling. And I want you to focus on the feeling of the solidity of this, even though it is a 2-dimensional drawing. I want you to get a sense of the mass of the solidness of this as we rotate around it. Okay. You'll see what I mean here. If you've never seen this before, here you go. She just loves that thing. I love that opening. It's fantastic. Anyway, so that's the idea of solid drawing. Gives you some sort of a sense of the weight and the feel of this thing. Okay. So yeah, I'm sure. Okay. So that's solid drawing. Appeal. This is the last one that I'm going to show you. So there's not an example of every one. I've skipped over a couple of the super simple ones. You're going to have to go over them and look at them. But the quiz is based basically on this. I'm going to play the last bit for you because we're now like, yeah, it's almost 2 o'clock. Appeal. What's appeal? You know, appeal is this kind of thing you try to do it and you're like, can we bring something, some interest, some charisma, some excitement, some feel to this kind of thing? And I'm going to play this piece for you. It's the opening of an HBO show called True Detective. It's from the first season of True Detective, which was a spectacular show if you ever want to watch it. Even though nobody likes Matthew McConaughey, he's in it and it's unbelievably good. Has anybody seen True Detective? Oh my God. Anyway,
yes, I did.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad.
And
What'd
I
you
love
think?
Matthew McConaughey. Sorry.
Oh, gee, okay. I think he's fantastic. Like he is a fantastic. Like once you take the link and add it, he's pretty fantastic. Okay, so let me give you that. Let me play that for you, and then I'll come back and I'll just do a quick discussion of it.
Hidden in the branches of the poison
So that's the last example. And it's really weird. It's a difficult example because the idea of appeal, like, is that in and of itself an appealing thing? It's an engaging thing. It draws you in, and the animation is done. There's so much depth to it that it is, what it's doing is it's giving you clues, but it's not giving you necessarily answers, but it engages you and it pulls you into it. And that is the idea of what the appeal is. It's something, it's a level beyond what is the just completely on the surface. If you can do it, it's fantastic. Are you able to do it on everything? No, absolutely not. I mean, do you think that those guys doing the Kickstarter video for the drill were trying to, do that? Well, if they were, they failed miserably. But it's a goal to aspire to do something like that. It's like, can you make this more engaging? Can you make this exist on a level that's not quite so obvious to the immediate viewer? Okay. There you go. So that's it for today. It was a lot. It was a lot of stuff, eh? So, and I think we'll try and as we go have, similar number of breaks. I'm going to try to keep the tutorials down to like pretty simple, straight ahead, and not too, but we're going to march along and do a great job. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can send email to me or whatever. I think that you got the quiz up there to do. We'll see you guys next week. Okay. Thank you very much. And I'll post this recording to up to Brightspace.
Thanks, Chris. Have a good week.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
Bye.